How's it going? It's Brian McCarthy. I want to walk you through a simple exercise that can help you get more done in 5 hours than you typically do in eight, while also having more energy and doing higher quality work. And I know that's an outrageously high claim, but this is an outcome that I see my clients get over and over again at all levels within an organization, whether they're CEOs or CMOs, program directors, whatever it is, they keep getting these results. And at the very least, what will happen is you'll get more done and then have an extra hour in your day left over that you can, you know, take on a different project at work that has been on the back burner for a while, or just have better work-life balance. And also you'll have that extra hour free while also having more energy and enjoying your work more. So that's the lowest level of what you'll get from this. The higher level is freeing up like 3 hours a day. Seriously, my clients go from working 12 hours a day to like 7, and everything still gets done and everyone's enjoying work and feeling great. So this is what it's all about. Basically, we have these expectations of ourselves that create extra stress, pressure, and busyness that does not need to be there. When we notice these expectations, get rid of them, frees up a bunch of time and energy, and makes us more productive, makes us do better work, makes us enjoy our work a lot more, helps us work better with other people because we're not so like crunched and stressed and behind and all that stuff. So what you're going to do is write down the expectations you have for yourself based on the role you're in. So, as an HR director or whatever it is, what are the expectations that you have for yourself? A good way to find these expectations are, where throughout the day do you find yourself saying the words like should, need to, have to? What are the expectations, the things that you feel like you should be doing, need to do, have to do, all that kind of stuff? Get that all out. And if you want, you can even do this for other roles you have, right? So maybe you're also like a leader at work. So as a leader, how do you feel like you should be, need to be, have to be? What are the expectations you have for yourself as a leader? And you can even do this at areas at home, right? As a mom, as a partner, what should you be doing, need to be doing? What expectations do you have for yourself? So get that all out. And these are just a couple examples of what my clients come up with. So like, I need to be on Slack all day in case of emergencies. I've got to keep my door open all day and field any questions that come in. I've got to prove myself. I got to prove that I belong here. Even clients who are super high achievers get rave reviews, tremendous output and productivity, and they're secretly burning out because they've got this internal pressure of, I've got to prove myself. I'm only as good as like my last deal or my last project, my last win. So there's this constant need and stress and pressure to prove themselves, prove they belong, prove they're good enough. That creates a lot of this, like, basically eventually leads to burnout. I need to make everyone else around me happy. I've got to make sure everyone else is enjoying themselves and have a good time. I need to be productive at every moment. I need to do everything myself. I can't trust other people to do it. Let's see. If you're in a leadership role, that means I need to show up a certain way. Everyone needs to be engaged and energized whenever I give my presentation, that kind of stuff. So these expectations we have for ourselves create a lot of stress and pressure and busyness, like basically extra work that we don't need to be doing. So if you look at these expectations and then you look at like what actions do they lead to, what feelings do they lead to, and are they even helpful? Like, is your pressure to get everyone else super riled up and engaged and passionate when you're giving your presentation, like, is that helping, or is it creating all this extra stress and pressure on yourself, and the results aren't even coming to the extent that you want, and then you just feel worse about what you're doing, and it makes the meeting like something you dread and slog through and kind of like, go over again and again in your head because you're worried about it. So it's burning all this mental energy, right? So look at these expectations, look at what actions they lead to. Are these even helpful? What would happen if these expectations weren't there? And another way to look at this, the common categories that come up with these expectations, you may find that some of them are just impossibly high standards no mere mortal could ever possibly hit. You might find that some of these expectations that you have yourself, but you don't actually believe them. It's like someone else's belief got kind of wiggled into your brain. So you've got this pressure on yourself to do this thing that you don't even believe you need to do or is important or necessary or part of your job. You might have expectations that you think other people have of you, but they never actually said that. Like you're kind of creating expectations that you think they have of you, but that has never been stated or agreed to. You might find you have expectations that can't like it creates this unwinnable game in your mind. Like there's no actually criteria of what success looks like. You only know what failure looks like, but there's really no set criteria for like what success even means. Or you have conflicting criteria. So if you do one thing well, it means you're doing another poorly, and so you can't win, and you create this internal game in your head where you no matter what you're going to lose. Or you might have this expectation that involves you having control over something yet you don't have any control over, like other people's feelings and emotions and behaviors. And so that creates extra stress and pressure and overwhelming yourself to get a certain result that you don't even have any control over. You can help create the environment for their happiness, and there's certain things you can do, but ultimately you don't have control over other people's emotions. So you taking that on puts kind of your satisfaction on something that you've got no control over, and it just keeps you on very wobbly ground where you can always feel stressed and behind, like you're not doing a good enough job and all that kind of stuff. So what by getting these expectations out and seeing the behaviors that they lead to, a lot of times my clients find like, oh, it's some of the stuff I don't actually need to be doing in the first place. Or they just become a lot more discerning about it. Like, I don't need to be available on Slack all of the time, but here's the things. There's actually this very small percentage of things that I need to like be aware of and super responsive to, and everything else I can like have a little bit more breathing room around. So they're not just like, on eggshells and tense all day and worried that they could be missing something. So having these expectations, seeing what they lead to, you start to realize it creates internal stress and pressure that isn't helping. It limits our focus. It cuts off our creative thinking. It makes it think like everything's an emergency, so it makes it struggle to prioritize. That's what happens when we start operating from this place of more like stress and pressure. And that leads us to taking more work on our plate that we need to, not prioritizing or discerning very well. So we're just doing stuff that feels good because it's busy, but isn't actually needed and isn't actually helping people the way that we think it might be. And so once you break out of these expectations, you discard a bunch of this stuff. You prioritize better. You have more energy. You make better decisions. You can be more creative, problem solve a lot faster because you're not putting all this like heaviness and stress on yourself. And that's how my clients' days open up. They get more done. They're more productive. They're enjoying their work. They've got more energy. They're more collaborative. And just work becomes more awesome and lighter and more enjoyable for them and everyone around them. So the other part of doing that, sometimes you might recognize these expectations are silly. Like, hey, yeah, I know perfectionism doesn't exist, but it takes more than just telling yourself to stop being a perfectionist, right? Like that just creates an inner conflict where you're like, part of you is like everything needs to be perfect, and then you're telling yourself, no, it doesn't. It's like perfectionism, like there is no perfect. It's just, it's okay to just do as best you can. But part of you doesn't actually believe that. So the reason, and then that creates this inner conflict, and it's a constant battle every single day. So the reason that happens is there's deeper fears and beliefs that are keeping that idea of perfectionism in place. And what I do with my clients is dismantle those deeper fears and beliefs. Then the perfectionism is gone. And then you don't have to fight against it every day. And that you can show up with more energy and confidence and inspiration without that pressure of like having to get it perfect or else. And that goes for all the other expectations as well. You find the deeper fears and beliefs, you dismantle them, they fall apart, they're no longer there. Then instead of operating from this place of like stress and pressure and I'm not good enough and I'm behind and I need to do more, you're operating from a place of inspiration and confidence and like back to, what excites you about your job and what you love about it and the creativity and all that aspect. You start to operate from that place, which again, you make better decisions, you're more effective, you communicate better, you're more collaborative, you solve problems faster and easier, because you're not weighed down with all this muck. So do this exercise. Let me know how it goes. If you'd like help with it, if you want to help breaking out of these expectations, if you're like, hey, I know this expectation isn't helping me, but it's still there, let me know because we can dismantle it and just get rid of it entirely so it doesn't even show up in your world anymore. So if you're interested in that, Brian at McCarthyMindsetCoaching.com. And if you're interested in doing more of this kind of work with your company, just reach out, let me know. We can hop on a call and go over exactly what that can look like. All right, have a wonderful day.